Good afternoon, everyone. The idea behind this entire session is what actually NASSCOM Foundation stands for. NASSCOM Foundation is a firm believer in this entire phenomena called technology for change. As Sandeepan said, technology is an enabler, is a force multiplier. Uh, with the widespread of technology now beginning to trickle down into Mofussil India, we hear all kinds of stories as part of our work. Bhel Puri walas, Panchar walas setting up WhatsApp groups, uh, even and erstwhile small non-profit organizations now working with technology as emerging technology as big data to solve problems like missing children and all. So technology is widespreading and technology is also moving fast. New technology is coming out every day, and as much as the business world, it is a non-profit and the development sector which also should leverage the power of this technology. At NASSCOM Foundation, the work that we do cannot be possible without the support and active participation of our partners who bring their technological expertise, their knowledge of what works, what doesn't work, what can be used in different ways to solve some societal problems. We can never exist without their active support. So the session today basically is an invitation to some of our partners to come and talk about their work, to tell their story of how they are using technology to drive societal change in India. One small, before we begin and I invite my first speaker, one small request from all of you. We will not be taking questions at the end of every presentation. We have 4 presentations today, so we will let each speaker finish their story. If you have any questions, I will request you to write them down on a piece of paper. Just write down who it is addressed to and identify yourself. Our team will collect these questions from you, and then we will address these questions at the end. This will help us channel the session better, and you will get the opportunity to listen to each speaker. Every speaker will get their own due share of time, okay? Otherwise, we'll just get rushed in the end. So this is it. Without any further ado, I would now like to invite Nishith Pathak from Accenture Technologies. A little bit of introduction to Nishith. Nishith is one of the 19 most valued partners in artificial intelligence as recognized by Microsoft. He is the only Indian MVP in AI by Microsoft. He's also a prolific writer. His latest book is titled Artificial Intelligence for .NET. Sorry for that. Nishith also chairs a number of organizations and deals specifically with emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, cognitive computing. So be ready for a talk on how Nishith's organization is dealing with societal change. Nishith, over to you.
Okay, so thanks Harish for such a good intro about myself. So I'm from Accenture Labs. That's something Harish missed out. So before we really go out and talk about the societal challenges and whatever things that we are doing from Accenture Labs, I just want to take the entire team sitting out here to some of the technologies and their route that they have taken since last 4 or 5 decades. So if you see it out, I have actually categorized the technologies to technology waves, and there are around 7 technology waves starting from mainframes, client-server PCs, Web 2.0, and then going till artificial intelligence, machine learning, and IoT and smart machines. So if you really see it out, all the waves, you will figure it out since the last 2 waves, especially IoT and artificial intelligence and machine learning. These are the 2 waves that have the very steeper curve. They are the curves that they are going to go for last, and they are expected out that will bring a lot of disruption in various places. So when we talk about all of these technologies like artificial intelligence, blockchain, machine learning, a lot of companies are doing a lot of things, but we in labs think it out. How can we use these technologies to resolve social challenges, right? Now, one thing that myself and from my labs, whatever we loved out is to see challenges in front of it, because challenges, as more the challenges are there, it actually leads to more innovations, and presumably from Accenture perspective, we'll have a lot to do in terms of innovations. So what we did was we thought of taking artificial intelligence, taking machine learning, IoT, blockchain, and see that what we can do in order to resolve the social challenges. And that's where we coined the stuff called tech for good. So for tech for good, this is our definition for tech for good. So what we think of tech for good is creating an innovative applications using emerging technologies, not just to ensure the sustainable development, but creating a positive impact around various social issues. And that's exactly is what we thought in terms of doing a research. So we keep on doing research on various technologies as such. What I want to do is I want to take you to the journey of some of the applications that we have developed over a period of time. And especially I'll try to brief out of one of the application very quickly as such. So in terms of taking the Tech for Good initiative and taking it forward, one of the notion is why we are taking this and what are the challenges that we are taking out. So we go back and taking the 17 sustainable development goals that UN has created. And those were some of the benchmarks that we have to take. So we have to take out poverty, gender equality, inclusion, diversity, child health, trafficking, education. So we try to take one of these topics and start resolving challenges on this. So one thing that we want to talk about is one of the applications that we recently designed last year was Drishti. So Drishti, as you know, in Sanskrit means vision. But in actual, Drishti is an acronym of disambiguating real-time insights for real-time human insights. So what it does is, it actually helps visual impaired people see the rest of the world. And that is why we actually have put out in an inclusive space. Now, in this, what we do was we created an application that can recognize, describe the scene, provide some information about to the people who are having a visual impairment as well. And that's where we co-innovate with an NGO called National Association of Blind in Mumbai, and that's where we thought of creating out this whole stuff. Now, before I go down, so this is more about Drishti and some of the features of Drishti. It's an Android application. It basically uses an AI-based platform that we have developed within Accenture. It is based on the open source, open innovation, some of the commercial APIs and Accenture IPs, of course, some patent solution. And of course, one of the things that it does was helping out reduces and especially for the visual impaired people, see the rest of the world. Now, there are some of the offerings that it do. It has listed down some of the offerings as such. So, it does the natural language generation. It does, the face detection. It does face recognition. It does scene description. And it does it all without just a matter of click. And one other thing that we have, while we were developing it out, we have spent good amount of time sitting it out with National Association of Blind, understanding how the blind perceives it out, how they are attracting with mobile applications. So that actually have created out as this application presumably has no buttons in it. It's totally human-centric. And we have to make it out pretty much accessible friendly so that our visual impaired friends are able to access it. So what I want to do is, taking next is I want to just take a video of 2 minutes wherein we want to brief it out with our journey with National Association of Blind.
It is a dream come true for blind people. This software will enable us to see the world which we were unable to see previously.
Drishti helps identify objects around the user.
Analyzing the scene. I think there is a cell phone on the table. On deeper analysis, I think it is a black Samsung Galaxy Android phone.
The solution provides natural language generation capability to describe the scene to the visually challenged person. The solution uses human-centric design principles and can integrate with smart glasses like Pivot Head to support the visually challenged with information with just a tap on the mobile screen.
Scene captured. Analyzing the scene, I think it is a white sedan.
The solution can be used to describe the close surroundings.
Analyzing the scene. 2 people were detected. Age 37.3 years old male who is smiling. And 35.2-year-old male who is smiling.
I can say that this software is a drushti, like it is a true vision for us. I must thank all developers of this software. I must congratulate them for taking this step to make our lives meaningful and fulfilled.
Thank you so much. And believe me, one of my best days in Accenture was when we were doing the pilot with NABs. And, presumably we had thoroughly enjoyed, spending time with NAB and making sure that this application gets viral across the globe as well. So, when we released our distillery last year, it got viral in terms of various newspapers as well. And, especially on Forbes, Hindu and other newspapers as well. So these are some of the headlines I thought, to walk you guys through. There are other applications. It's not that, we are just working on inclusion. There are a lot of things that we are trying to do, and just I want to take in lieu of time, I want to just quickly take you through rest of the other applications. Like, so one of the other application that we have done is for education with Akshapata. Akshapata, as you might be aware about, is a company that wants to provide, want to ensure that no children gets into poverty because of education and all. So it provides a lot of meals and around 1,000,000 meals and a half. And in fact, they are very tech savvy. Their mega kitchens are very stuffed. And even if you are able to save 1 paisa per meal, we will be able to save around, 1,000,000 meals for our children in a year. So what we did was we worked with Akshay Patra, deployed some of the startups, worked with them, and we are able to save around close to 1,000,000 meals, additional meals with the same cost with Akshay Patra. So that's exactly what we did in terms of education. Empowerment of women, Shirish was talking about child trafficking, and this is one of the application that we have deployed in West Bengal district around 24 South Paraganas, wherein we were collaborating with Child in Need Institute as an NGO, wherein this application was able to do and take the trafficking and able to identify the vulnerable child or a predictable child who can be trafficked in near futures. So in this way, in the first year itself, it was able to show around 200 children in the first year of implementation as such. The last one is technology for good in terms of environment. So what we did was we co-innovated with BNHS, which is Bombay National School of Birds, and what we did was we created the site called internetofbirds.com, and even it is live right now. And what it does was, as soon as you start taking a bird's photo in India, it is able to predict out what that bird is, and you can start getting information about that bird. So it is more like a social platform, and we are trying to increase it. Till now, we have actually got at around 352 species we have identified, and the count is increasing every day or so. So that's it from my side, but this is what we do in terms of applications. And if I have been any questions, so I would be very happy to answer it later on. Thank you.
No, you can sit down. We'll call everybody up. Thank you, Nishith. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. When I was a child, I used to remember this blind school ad which said that the gift of sight is one of the best gifts that one could give anybody, and what your technology is doing for visually impaired people is absolutely brilliant. So hats off to you and Accenture Labs for that. My next speaker is no less proficient in his sphere of work. I would like to call upon Harish Krishnan, Managing Director, Public Affairs and Strategic Engagements for CISCO, India and SAARC. Harish is sort of a policy maven. He works on multiple engagements that CISCO is involved in with stakeholders at the state as well as the national level. Harish is also on he's also the chairman for CII's Broadband Committee and co-chair for USIBC's Digital Task Force. So Harish, over to you next. Yep. Where's your clicker? And I think you're up.
Thank you so much for technology proficiency. Thank you. So Nishith, is a very interesting presentation. I especially liked your Drishti software, and you got to tell the group later on whether that age detection was right in your case. Okay, great. So just in terms of setting the context, India has a huge societal challenge, as all of us know. We have a big migration of people from urban to rural areas. Almost 25 people migrate on a per minute basis. That statistics always bowls me over. And we always talk about a demographic dividend, but we also have a demographic time bomb. We have something like 500 million people who are either underemployed or unemployed, and we have 10 lakh people coming to the work stream every year. So therefore, there's a huge stress on infrastructure, whether it's security, education, healthcare, what have you. There's a huge stress on the infrastructure. And therefore, this option of leapfrogging is not an option for India. We need to pole vault. And that's where I think technology has a great role to play. And technology is a force multiplier. And when you combine technology with CSR, we've got a great combination. I call CSR as the highest risk capital. It is almost like adventure capital, where we kind of try and be able to experiment and see what works and what does not work. And when you look at technology and what it can do for solving some of the societal needs, I think there is no doubt that many of the challenges can be solved, whether it is education or healthcare. And we've got a number of companies around this room, whether it's Intel or whether it's Cisco or Accenture. All of us have different pilot projects on all these social challenges. The problem is, how do you take the pilots to scale? And that's been always the challenge for all of us. And I think that's where we are trying to focus to see what we can do about it. And the CISCO philosophy for CSR is to work at the cusp of what the society needs and what technology can do. And of late, we are also trying to see what is the business model that can help to scale. And frankly, to also see how some of this can be folded into the government programs. What I'm going to do today is to take through two examples of what we are doing and two initiatives that we are trying to launch this year. And guess what? The first one is Akshay Patra. And I think we've got similar experience like Accenture, and like what Nishith mentioned, the Akshay Patra is doing a phenomenal work, feeding 1.66 million children. And our traditional approach of CISCO was to write a check and provide X number of meals. But last year, what we did was to sit down with our engineering team and get the Akshay Patra team to look at how can technology make a difference. And CISCO is in the business of connecting things and connecting people. And our kind of byline is, when you connect the unconnected, magic happens. So what we did was to connect a number of their kitchens around the country and the headquarters. We helped them in their inventory management, the real-time tracking of the delivery, and supply chain and logistics. And that again led to a phenomenal increase in productivity, which we estimate is like 5%, which is about 28,500 children getting meals every day more. So this, I think, is a good example of a sustainable engagement on using CSR and technology to bring about more efficiency. I'm sure Accenture did something more and they had brought more efficiency. So I think Akshay Patra seems to be in good hands in terms of how they're approaching this. Another example of what we've done as a prototype is a thing called the Kisan Raja Smart Pumps. We're trying to see what, again, connecting the unconnected, how can it make a big difference? So in rural India, electricity is a big problem. It comes in different times, and most of the time it comes late at night, at 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning, and a villager is finding it very difficult to go to the farm, which is quite far away, to kind of go and switch on the electric motor. An electric motor is one of the biggest investment that a farmer makes. He spends almost most of his capital, most of the loans that a farmer takes from a bank is on a motor. And therefore, leaving it on always is not an option. It also leads to more utilization of water. So I think the issue was, how do we make the life of the farmer easier? So we worked with this small organization, company called Kisan Raja, and did a prototype by which a farmer sitting in his village gets a notification on his Android phone when the power comes in the village, in the field. And once he knows that this power is on, and he also gets notification in terms of what is the moisture content in the soil at a particular time, is there going to be rain the next day, so on and so forth. It helps him make a decision whether he needs to irrigate the land that particular day. And the best part of it is he's able to switch on his motor from where he is, that is from his home, and switch it off too. So this brings in a lot of productivity to the farmer, and I think it makes his life easier, and it brings in, again, another example of how technology can make a difference at a grassroots level. Now, I just want to talk about two new initiatives. In fact, this is probably more important for most of the NGOs and entrepreneurs who are sitting out here. CISCO is on a kind of a learning curve on CSR. We have obviously our 2% CSR that we've obliged to spend in a very judicious way. We are in the third year of that journey. The first year we were a bit amateurish, taking a lot of hobby projects of a lot of our employees and seeing how we can meet with it. The passion was more than the practical aspects of that. The year two, we decided that we'll bring it down to 3 areas where we will focus on, just critical human needs, economic empowerment, and education. So we had clearly 3 themes on which we would kind of operate. And we supported several NGOs who were doing work in these areas. In the year 3 now, we are trying to bring in a CISCO program into it and trying to make the NGOs work with us. So I'm just going to talk about 2 such initiatives that which will be of interest to you. One is CISCO Thinkubator. We are setting up 5 maker spaces in 5 universities in India in partnership with NASSCOM Foundation. The objective of this centers of excellence or the maker space would be to tackle a major challenge that the country faces, whether it is urbanization or rural innovation, healthcare or education, to solve that. And we'll have 2 cohorts of students, of 60 each, who will be given this challenge to take, and CISCO will provide all the equipment, everything else for them to make a prototype of that. We'll also be providing our experts to work with them, to mentor them, to see how they can come up with a business plan. And the top entrants in this initiative will obviously get a prize, but more importantly, will get introduction to other NGOs and also to see whether they can get a CISCO funding for a commercial project as they kind of move forward. So that is one that focuses on the students. The second is CISCO NGO Accelerator. One of the things that we're trying to see is to encourage more and more NGOs to use technology. And I see a lot of displays here, and I'm sure people are all on the track, but I think we thought there needs to be a cohorted kind of an action to encourage people to on this path. So starting this year, we've tied up with one of the NGOs to institute a CISCO NGO Accelerator. We are going to solicit applications in the next couple of months of NGOs who want to apply. It will be early start NGOs or like 12 months plus kind of NGOs. And what we'll do is we anticipate that we're going to get thousands of applications. We'll filter it into a smaller number of NGOs, and of which we're going to select 10 NGOs per year, who we are going to fund them to encourage them to use technology. And then again, we'll have a prize of amongst the 10 for top 3. And they again would be eligible for CISCO further funding, as we kind of progress. So these are the 2 initiatives that I thought will be good for all of you to know about. And just to conclude, there is a solution for all the problems, and technology is a major enabler. I think we are on a journey to learn together. I think the private sector, the corporates, NGOs, and the government has got to work together to to find the solution as well as to scale it from there. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take questions later on.
Thank you, Harish. What stayed with me from that presentation was that mission or vision, as you said. When you connect the unconnected, magic happens, and that I think is a true representation of what technology can do. Technology can make magic happen for all strata of society, for not just for the digitally enabled, but also for people who are on the other side of the digital divide. So thank you, Harish, for that. Next, I would like to invite another friend of NASSCOM Foundation, Kishore Balaji, Director, Corporate Affairs, Intel South Asia. Kishore has worked across a multitude of verticals ranging from education, innovation, entrepreneurship, technology for small businesses. In these various roles, he's interacted with a large number of stakeholders, governments, non-profit organizations, bilaterals, which has given him a unique perspective on the needs that different kind of stakeholders have and the possible solutions that that can be developed through technology. So I now invite Kishore Balaji from Intel.
Thanks. First of all, it's my honor and privilege to be addressing this gathering today. Before I begin, today I am reminded of a quote from Tale of Two Cities as the story begins. I think we live in some of the best of the times, and we live in some of the worst of the times. We live in some of the best of the times because, like the speakers ahead of me spoke, there are so much technology advancement. There is so much technology is doing for people. We still live in some of the worst of the times because there is so much of inclusion issues, challenges, etc. Right? So just beginning with that. So I've been a fairly regular fixture at events like this over the past decade. 10 years back, I would have said, hey, you know what? Technology can really help you. 5 years back, I would have said, technology is really enabling you. But today I'm saying there is a barrage of technology out there. There's a tsunami of technology that, my Nishith spoke about. There are curves happening there. How is society going to be gearing up to, absorb the goodness of all of this, right? And so all this has happened in just about last 10 years. So this is not a one-off occurrence. What we are seeing is a continuation of a large ball that is set and roll as the Industrial Revolution. We know the first Industrial Revolution, which is about cold and steam. The second was about electrification. The third, which we lived all our youth, was about computation. What we're staring at today is not one-off technology change. It's part of a huge change, which is the fourth Industrial Revolution. A revolution which is going to bring together technology, the physics, the biology, the chemistry, all of it together. And when is that happening? As you and me speak, it's already started. Now, I'm not going to talk about the waves of technology, but I'm saying there are many technologies that are driving this, right? So everything that we read in science fiction books, we saw in Iron Mans of the world, is happening now. We hear of people walking with artificial pancreas, a heart in the backpack, people wearing exoskeletons and getting work done. All that is happening now. Some of the key technology drivers which are driving this change are things like merged reality, distributed ledger, 5G, etc. Now, whether we like it or not, we can sit and talk about it all day long, whether it is good, whether it is not so good, etc. But this is an uncontrolled change that's already beginning to happen, right? Can this benefit humanity? Yes. Every day we read of many such examples where technology like this are enabling people to lead better lives. Things are becoming efficient. The environment, etc., are getting sustainable, though in small blocks. There is a promise of goodness out there when this fourth industrial revolution really reaches its peak performance and potential. Having said that, as thinkers in the country, in the world, there are a few building blocks that still need to be built, right? The bus is traveling faster than we're building the roads for them on, right? So there are issues around policy gaps. Now, what happens when a robotic police suddenly goes and shoots? There are issues around employability gap, right? I mean, today's workforce has 3 generations, right? Digital natives, like my son, who kind of know exactly what to do to talk to their cousin in the US or wherever. And there are early adapters like me. We figured out saying, hey, we need to be part of this, otherwise we get left out. And there are people like my dad. My dad served a fair good stint in bank, and I think he quit the day he was asked to sign a document which an idiot box churned out. I mean, he just took a retirement. He said, I cannot, unless I calculate what the computer is telling me, how can I sign on it? Right? So I think employability gaps, therefore, will widen. With huge amount of connected systems, connected devices, technology everywhere, huge potential for some work to be done in the cybersecurity space. And I'm told one of the breakouts in this conference earlier today spoke about that in depth. There are issues around inclusion gap, right? How can machine be as empathetic as a human being? How will a machine know in a conflict zone who needs attention first? How can that decision making happen, etc.? And then, of course, there are issues around skill gaps. I mean, skills of today, not subserving skill, what's required tomorrow, but we're talking about a rate of change of pace which is so absolutely humongous and overwhelming. Now, these are the new age skills, right? So we've been speaking so long about, things are changing at a rapid pace. Can we ever prepare the youth and communities for this? I think there are some building block skills as there is rise of machine, as the world is getting flatter, getting connected, as there is extreme longevity that is coming. There are building block skills we certainly can give our youth in schools and communities. Right? Those are around adaptive learning, design mindset, sense making, cross-cultural sensitivity in working, new age literacy, etc. Now, these I believe will help youth in India really unlock their potential to participate in the fourth industrial revolution as somebody who can contribute to making. Whether or not we will be consuming technology, we'll be consuming changes that are thrown with us, but this will help our demographic dividend truly go and contribute in a way that they can make exciting living for themselves. Now, as we've been gazing, I think Harish mentioned, we as industry have the luxury of, from our vantage, spotting some of the changes, and we have the luxury of indulging in some early pilots to understand how we can make sense of it before we start advocating large-scale ramp up with governments, with fellow travelers, etc. So we recently have been engaged in a program called Intel Innovation Generation. What we've tried to do is we've tried to look at how the government of India is looking at this opportunity. Are they getting it, are they getting the enormity, etc. I'm of the opinion that while the scale of fourth industrial revolution is going at one pace, right, knowingly or unknowingly, the government of India is looking at how can you build such building block skills among youth, right? One of the programs that we work with them is that whole Atal Tinker Lab program where they're saying, okay, the youth of today is tinkering less than before. I mean, if there's an exhaust fan at home that doesn't work, 10 years back I would have gone and fixed it. Today, 2 years back I would have called someone to go and fix it. Today the guy I call comes and says, fixing it is going to cost as much as changing it. Might as well change and go. So nobody in India is actually dirtying their hands, building things up, fixing things, etc. Right? And that's the thing that the program aims to do at a very, very humongous scale, right? As we talk, the government's talking about setting up 2,400 odd centers. So what we did is we set up 10 such centers. So we said we will pick up extremely diverse locations because a lot has been proven just in Delhi and Bangalore. So we went as far as Port Blair, Guwahati. We also set up a center nevertheless in Bangalore and Delhi, right? We picked up this whole large breadth and we set up what an ideal tinkering atmosphere could look like. And then we kind of deployed a localized curriculum there. And then we've trained not only the Tinker Lab students, but also students around the Tinker Lab. And we've trained some set of youth, right? The focus doesn't end there. What we're trying to do now is we're trying to say, okay, skilling by itself is part of the journey. Is there a way that we can encourage youth to go use what they have learned to build something for their communities? So as part of what I do, the youth go and work with the community and try to identify issues that are there in their community and help create solutions for them. So last year we created 11 such marquee solutions along with the local youth. One of the solutions is here, right? So here we're talking about a girl in Vizag who after a small intervention has gone ahead to build a very small, water quality monitoring, if I may, that enables shrimp farmers, improve their yield. Very early days, right? I mean, this is like a 3-month-old pilot, right? Though we've been operating the center for a little more than a year. And the results look promising, right? Now, Harish and I were chatting while Nishith was speaking, right? I think the problem in India is, given the veracity of various programs that we do, we come across many such interventions, right? Kids doing well. A lot of us run science fair, a lot of us run higher education programs, right? I think one of the key challenges that still remain is, how do you institutionalize these technology getting to the community? These technologies getting to the community, not truly putting the burden of entrepreneurship on the innovator. Because the day you put the burden of entrepreneurship, if it is not a choice by the innovator, then you kill innovation in many times, right? I mean, so we should probably create an atmosphere for garage innovators who don't want to be entrepreneurs to thrive in India, right? Now, having said this worked in a formal school environment. We said, is there a way that this would work in a non-formal school environment? I mean, what happens when you unleash an intervention like this in a community learning space, right? So I have a small video, and I'll leave you with that video, and I'm happy to answer questions post that.
38 kilometers from the capital city of New Delhi is the small, underdeveloped town of Bhavana. The population is characterized by low income and rising day-to-day livelihood issues. From limited government schools and poor civic infrastructure to lack of sufficient electricity supply and clean water, the town is faced with several social challenges. On the other hand, Bhavana has its fair share of bright minds, ready to make their town a better place to live through the power of innovation.
ये इंटेल क्यूरी बोर्ड है, इसका पता है क्या क्या फंक्शन था? हमने लास्ट टाइम इस पर प्रोजेक्ट बनाया था।
हाँ, इससे हम मतलब ये इससे बात कर सकते हैं,
अलग अलग सेंसर से बात कर सकता है, ये अलग अलग आउटपुट दे सकता है, हम इसे प्रोग्राम कर सकते हैं, ठीक है ना। और आपके प्रोजेक्ट में हमने
all of you. My name is Maisar. My name is Rosie. My name is Nazma. हम सब बवाना जेजे कॉलोनी में रहते हैं। नवज्योति इंडिया फाउंडेशन में इंटेल टेक चैलेंज वर्कशॉप हुआ, जिसमें हमने इंटेल क्यूरी बोर्ड और सेंसर के बारे में जाना।
हमारा जो मोहल्ला है उसमें यह प्रॉब्लम है कि जो नल है उसमें पानी आता है, लोग उसे भरते हैं तथा उसका इस्तेमाल करते हैं, परंतु उन लोगों को यह नहीं पता चल पाता कि पानी पीने लायक है या नहीं। इसलिए हमने वाटर प्योरिटी मॉनिटरिंग डिवाइस बनाया है, जिससे हम पता लगाएंगे कि पानी पीने लायक है या नहीं।
इसमें हमने इंटेल क्यूरी बोर्ड, एलसीडी और पीएस सेंसर का उपयोग किया है।
ये पीएस सेंसर, जब हम इस पीएस सेंसर को पानी के साथ अटैच करते हैं तो इस मॉनिटरिंग पे दिखाई देता है कि यह पानी पीने लायक नहीं है।
मेरा नाम नीरज है और मैं जेजे कॉलोनी बवाना में रहता हूँ।
मेरा नाम फैसल है, मैं बवाना जेजे कॉलोनी में रहता हूँ। मैंने अपने क्षेत्र में अल्कोहल की वजह से काफ़ी एक्सीडेंट होते हुए देखा है।
हमने अपने मेंटर द्वारा एक मॉडल डिज़ाइन किया है जिसका नाम है अल्कोहल डिटेक्ट डिवाइस, जिसमें एक MQ3 सेंसर लगा है जो अल्कोहल को डिटेक्ट करेगा कि किस इंसान ने कितना अल्कोहल पी रखा है। जैसा कि आप देख सकते हैं इस बोर्ड की केवल एक LED जल रही है, इसका मतलब ये है कि ये काम कर रहा है। जैसे मैं इस DO को अल्कोहल सेंसर पर डालूँगा तो इस बोर्ड की सारी LED जल जाएगी। हम दोनों ये चाहते हैं कि ये डिवाइस गाड़ियों में लगे और अगर कोई भी व्यक्ति अल्कोहल पी के गाड़ी चलाने की कोशिश करेगा तो ये अल्कोहल डिटेक्ट करके गाड़ी स्टार्ट नहीं होने देगा, जिसके कारण काफ़ी हद तक दुर्घटनाओं से बचा जा सकता है।
Yeah, so there's one more example, paucity of time, I'm just skipping that, right? So I truly believe we are onto something where we can enable youth to create technology for good, right? The largest challenge still remember me, is this is not a cause one agency can solve. Government can't solve it, schools can't solve it, people like us can't solve it. It requires a larger village to come together, and I think we have the wherewithal within a group like this in the country to truly be able to not only help youth create technology, but also help the technologies go to community, get used, and then become probably a technology for community or a technology to scale. With that, I invite discussions post this, and I'm truly, truly elated at the opportunity of democratizing innovation in India. Before I leave, congratulations NASSCOM for actually walking the talk on inclusion, and I would like to thank this lady out there for everything that she's doing to get my word out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kishore. As usual, insightful, concise, and inclusive. Thank you for inviting all the participants over here to collaborate to take this mission forward. The next person or the next organization I would like to call over here is actually a team. It's a team from JP Morgan. The person I'd like to invite next is Nirav Chokshi, Managing Director, JP Morgan Corporate and Investment Bank here in India. Nirav Chokshi has over 20 years of experience in providing technology solutions for some of the world's largest institutions involved in banking and finance. And he's here to share with us their work that JP Morgan uses, the way JP Morgan uses technology to drive social change.
Hello. Hello. Yep. Thanks, Harish. So, we have had an illustrious panel talk before me, Nishith, Harish, and Kishore. And I think just to take that forward in terms of what I'm going to talk about, that's going to nicely dovetail into a lot of what we have just spoken about, right? And really what, we're going to break it up into three parts just in terms of the conversation. So, initially we'll just spend a little bit on the program that we call our Technology for Social Good program, where we work with globally with more than 100 NGOs in actually every year incubating with them and actually implementing technology solutions. We are then going to talk about some of the specific challenges which are very common to the NGOs and how we are developing frameworks that can help accelerate developing solutions and getting them out to the market for them and essentially help them improve their scale of operations, which then makes it more sustainable in a large country like India. And then we'll end it off with a case study where we have the CEO of one of our NGO partners here who's going to talk about the impact and scale that they have seen in their organizations, right? So Anand is our, he leads the Technology for Social Good initiative. So maybe you can give us a brief introduction of that.
All right, let me just quickly run into this. So Tech for Social Good, our group is all about how we corral the passion for our 40,000 technologists into solving real world problems that our nonprofits face. Figure this out. Sorry. So, all right, okay. So the number should give you a scale of what we operate at, but broadly we're about 40,000 plus technologists. We work with 1,200 plus nonprofit organizations over the last few years, globally across 19 cities, but really creating sustainable longer term impact for the communities that we serve and that we work in. But let me talk to you broadly about two of our flagship programs, Code for Good and Force for Good. Code for Good is our 24-36-hour hackathon-style event where we invite nonprofit partners as well as students supported by our employee volunteers, senior technologists, who then develop prototypes, solutions to solve their problems. Now, every year, we've been blown away by some of the innovative solutions that have come out of Code for Good. Now, we don't stop there. We take this forward on something we call Force for Good, which is a longer 6-8 month engagement with the nonprofit. Typically teams of 8 to 10 buttressed with our senior technologists' involvement as well. Developing, again, solutions at scale, ready to deploy, cloud ready, agile, and all of it. And these are a range of solutions across whether they're mobile apps or workflow automation solutions or data analytics, CRM in many cases. But it's a gamut of solutions really that we feel dramatically, significantly increase the efficiency at which our nonprofits operate at. Just a quick view on scale before I hand it over. Right now we've got about 90 plus engagements going on across the globe, 22 of them in India. We recently did pulse checks, almost all of them going great. We're already planning for the next one. Shraddha is here from Code for Good. She's already looking at how should we further scale up Code for Good as well. So awesome. Let me just hand it back to Nirav and we'll take it from there.
Yep. So really, we wanted to spend the next few minutes and talk about our Force for Good program, which is where we actually spend about 6 to 8 months with each NGO, trying to look at their problem and then provide a technology solution. But really, the part there which which I wanted to stress upon is, as we have been working on this program now for 3 to 4 years, and in fact, I don't know if Shrikant from NASSCOM Foundation is in the room, but one of the 2 years back, we were actually demoing in such a forum the Big Bridge program for NASSCOM, which we had just automated. Really what we have observed is when NGOs come to us with a problem statement, it really buckets itself out into a series of steps which are not very different from one program to the other. The first is the fact that a lot of their data distribution is spread out and it's manual and in Excel sheets. They want a place where they can somehow get all this data together. They want to run some analytics on that data. They want to do some reporting on that data. They want the ability to have a lot of their operatives spread out across India in locations where they may not have access to computers, be able to feed in this data through a mobile app. And then basically they want some kind of a human workflow capability to sort of progress the data, do some processing, and then come up with the next steps, right? And essentially, if all of this runs on Excel, then it's basically their funding and their size that determines the scale at which they are able to operate. So if we were to automate these steps, that's really what we realized is going to help a lot of the NGOs with the way their problems were defined. And what we have done at JP Morgan over the past 3 years is we have tried to develop a framework that sort of gives a solution which is able to help some of these needs which we just talked about, but also in a way that is not, we realize that there are limited skills in terms of technology, both infrastructure as well as ability to support with a lot of these NGO organizations, right? And that's really where what we have tried to do, because after 6 to 8 months where we have developed the solution, we then hand it over to the NGO and expect them to sustain, right? And that's where our framework comes in. We have this typical, I just took this as a slide from a typical example where almost all projects start with a build versus buy. This was a typical expenditure management system. I'm sure some of you will realize those names and figure out what we were trying to do. And finally, what we arrived at was a central RAD tool, a rapid application development tool, a framework that actually encapsulates a lot of what is mentioned around there. The fact that the ability for extending it, for developing new UI screens is all configurable and given to the hands of the NGOs where they don't really need technology support to be able to handle it. It's all cloud ready and deployed, so all they need to do is to, most of the NGOs these days, and organizations like Microsoft give a grant where you get something like $5,000 or something, I don't know the exact amount, but that's what you get for hosting on Azure. So there, as long as we can remove the technology-related challenges, what we have realized over the past few years is in actual use cases, we have seen that NGOs came to us with development for one system. Because we have a framework, we were able to give them 3 systems or automation of almost their entire operations. And we have seen a real big uptick in the number of projects that we have been able to undertake, right? We have tripled the number of projects that we can do just because we have, I gave example of one framework. There are actually multiple such frameworks that we have now developed through our Force for Good program. At this point, I would like to invite Poorvi. She's CEO for Katalyst, and she has been one of our partners for whom we have developed one such program, and we thought it best that she can talk about the impact of what the framework has meant and the solution has meant for your organization. Can we just switch over to the other people? Let them put it up.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And just let me start with what Katalyst is all about. So Katalyst, its vision is to see more women in senior leadership. So everyone loves data, right? So one data point I want to present, which I've observed today. So amongst all the speakers, I'm the only woman. So 1/6 of the speaker is a woman. And we want to change that. We want to change that statistics, and hence we are preparing young women in preparing them for senior leadership roles. And we typically work with women in STEM, girls pursuing higher education. So yeah, so this is basically the data point. 50% of women are employed, but only 10%, 20% actually go into senior leadership. And coming back to Katalyst, this is what we do. These are our various interventions. And hence, basically what I'm leading to is the complexity of work that is required. There's complexity of data. There is large number of data, multiple centers, interaction of various data points. And that leads to a lot of challenges in terms of for the center team and for the organization to manage this data. There's a lot of manual data entry. There are multiple Excel sheets which have to talk to each other, and we have to generate reports at various stages. Different people want different formats, whether it's various stakeholders. And also there's a risk of error in that. And hence it was very important for us to have a solution which would put everything together and give us an impactful report or impactful organization, because ultimately that would lead for us to actually focus on our work rather than focus on data entry as well as other documentation. So that's when Tonga was developed. Tonga was our traditional Excel-based solution, and thanks to JP Morgan, our partner, we have developed an Tonga. So it's an MIS, end-to-end MIS, right from when the students enter. So we work with college students who enter into engineering, and we work with them over 4 years with various interventions so that they are not only job ready, but they move up the career ladder. And hence it was very critical that we focus on the quality of interactions and interventions and not so much on this whole manual work. So JP Morgan helped us develop a cloud-based and customized solution which multiple stakeholders have access to. It helped also in terms of getting reports at a click of a button, just initial data entry, and then you have all the data available at a click of a button, and historical data which would help us in trend analysis. At the same time, real-time data. So at any point in time, we would have data available, of course, provided it's fed into the system. So, and plus then enabling it further through mobile technology, SMS notification, or using mobile app. And I think that's been one of the biggest impact. And JP Morgan has been a great support in terms of developing this MIS in Project 1. And now we are entered Project 2, where they're enhancing some of these features. Actually, we are learning after usage and a lot of ups and downs. And this has helped us go to the next phase where we're upgrading the system, and we are integrating further things like Tally into the system, where once the entries are made and it's linked to the MIS, again, or financial reports can also automatically get generated. So I hand back to, yeah. Well, right? Yes, and already I'm thinking of Project 3 and other such things that we can use to improve our efficiency as an organization and create larger impact. And of course, that would help us scale further. Currently, we have 500 students across 4 cities, Mumbai, Pune, Bangalore, and Delhi. And we work with the premier engineering institutes, but we hope to reach out to many more cities and many more colleges. for years to come. And thanks to partnership of JP Morgan and other our supporters.
So I think one thing she didn't mention, but the one thing that gave us the greatest satisfaction was the fact that they don't have a single technologist on their roles, and they were able to enhance the solution for additional screens and fields that they needed to do, which essentially was what we had set out to do, right? So I mean, this is just an example. I think there are other examples where we are working with an NGO in the US, something called Happy Hearts Fund, which develops schools in, or sets up the infrastructure in earthquake-ravaged areas around the world. So they were helping Nepal, but their challenge was that their funders in the US had no way to see what was happening on the ground. And that's where some augmented reality solution that was developed could actually show the funding members exactly what was happening with their money and how it was all coming up, right? So I think net-net, I would just like to end by saying that, somebody said it before me, right? So technology is here, right? It's going to enable, it's going to do wonders. All we need to do is harness it and help in the right way for all our NGO partners, and that's really what we are trying to do at JP Morgan, and of course at all the other firms. Thank you.
Thank you, Nirav. Just one question before I take in the other questions. Do you guys have some kind of a secret sauce that helps you communicate with NGOs? Because I'll tell you, we have a program that helps nonprofits develop technology solutions, and it always breaks down on what does the NGO actually require and what does the technologist understand of the requirement. That conversation never seems to come together. So, I mean, I'm going to pick your brains on that.
So I think one of the things we started doing 3 years back was start the agile methodology into our whole development cycle. So every project has a 3-week check-in with their NGO partners where they demonstrate what they have done in the last 3 weeks.
Okay.
So that's really helped wonders.
I'll pick your brains a little more on that.
Sure.
Now it's the end of the session, and I would like to call back all our speakers onto stage and to take questions that may our audience may have. So, Nishith, Kishore, Harish, please. Any more questions out there? Just raise your hand. Our team will come. Okay, so the first question is for Nishith. Can we have enough?
We can pass it around.
I will. So first question is from Nishith. It's from Ankush Khanna at Change Alliance. Firstly, great work being done by you and your team. However, the question is regarding the affordability and scale and integration of the solutions with existing solutions, currently existing solutions in the market. So,
right. So basically, most of the solutions are standalone solution as such. So with respect to Drishti is a mobile application. Pretty much. Of course, it has some sort of a commercial API cost in between because we want to make sure that the quality is up to date. So there is a small cost that has actually been funded by a CSR for us, and we didn't put it out into Play Store primarily because we want to make sure that the NGO uses it with us. So what we are working out is rolling up and deploying the solution across the globe. Using Drishti with various NGO partners as well. Just to give you a glance, pretty much affordable as such. And, the Drishti currently is being used in Argentina. It has been used in Africa. It's been used in Canada, China. We actually went ahead and made it multilingual as well, so that it's not just understand English, it understands Hindi as well as Spanish. So those multitude of implementation is coming in, and more research we are trying to incorporate. And one of the reasons why we thought of developing these things is to make sure that the cost is pretty low, and when we are rolling it out, it's presumably a zero cost for the users who are using it.
Okay. Next question is from Ashwini Sinha, Telerat Tech, Bangalore. First question to CISCO. I'm going to take this up because I have a part of this answer too. So, CISCO was one of the initial few promoters of telemedicine in India. Can you tell us what are your steps so far as telemedicine is concerned, especially because government is also promoting telemedicine in a big way, before you answer. So, in 2002, I went for a trek in this forest in western Maharashtra called Melghat Tiger Reserve, and it's western Maharashtra, borders on the red belt, and we reached a place which only existed because that's where the bus, the state transport bus, used to turn around. The reason for that place to exist was the bus turned around there, so there was a chaika shop and there was a mechanic. Last year, I went there as part of another program. The place is still the same. It's still the place where the bus turns around. But now there are 2 more mechanics and there are a little more thing. And right in the middle of that is one cell phone tower, which is put up by IDEA, I think. And there is this container which provides telemedicine. So if telemedicine can reach that spot in this remote tiger reserve in the western Ghats of Maharashtra, in western Maharashtra, you can imagine what somebody like, when CISCO brings their weight to bear. Sorry, I took a little bit of that from you, but that's what telemedicine is for you. So.
Thank you very much. I'm going to take you to every place I speak to. You give a great platform. No, I think you're right. We were pioneers in telemedicine. We continue to do that. We have different kind of solutions, with the high end to the low end. And like I said in my talk, the good news today is that the infrastructure in India is available thanks to the government's BharatNet program. They're connecting up all the villages with high-speed broadband. I think my statistics is right. There are 7.5 lakh hotspots. There are 400 million smartphones. So I think the infrastructure is all available. And again, like I said, the ability of technology to solve a problem has been proved over and over again. I think the challenge has always been in terms of commercializing it or scaling it. And one of the things that we are talking to the government is, for example, can they give health coupons to rural people, which can be exchanged for a health service? So suppose Apollo sets up a telemedicine unit in a remote place. If a villager gets a coupon, he's able to go to the Apollo or any service provider for that matter and take the service. It becomes a commercially viable project. I think just to do it on CSR, it doesn't help in scaling. So that's the challenge that we have been having. We're trying to still grapple with it. I think there are a lot of government schemes that are now coming, and we hope to tag along and take this forward.
Yeah. But hats off to CISCO for having shown us the way, and as we were discussing just yesterday, in India, you said, I've set up 100 telemedicine centers. Government doesn't even bat an eyelid. It's tell me about 1 lakh centers and then we'll talk. So that's something that only the government can step up and do. But thanks to CISCO, we are at least taking that first step forward in that direction. Next question is to Accenture. Again, it's a medical question. Are you doing any algorithms for auto-detection of medical conditions based on diagnostic imaging such as X-rays, CT scans?
So with Accenture, a lot of things are being onto a research mode. So the way we do it out is, so of course, yes. So the short answer is yes. The long answer is, there are certain things that we work it out into a pro bono mode, more like a POC concepts and all. And then we test it out. And once we have thoroughly tested, then we go it out into the market and do it. So with Accenture being such a big organization, of course, there's a lot of stuff that is going out. We already have a vertical called healthcare, wherein we are predominantly working out on doing this. In fact, technology lab was also involved on creating one of the product for remote patient monitoring, wherein we were able to do mostly something like that, what you are saying out. And we have also launched the remote version monitoring in some of the hospitals in Bangalore. But yes, as and when it comes out, certainly we release some of the news as such. But if you are thinking out something concrete, I would suggest that, probably go on to the sites or probably search on YouTube. I think that's the best way to get some more information.
Okay. Right. Next question is for you, Kishore. Where does the government stand in terms of taking technology adoption in areas such as policing or other public services? And what are the steps that technology companies are doing to ensure that government adoption of technology takes place at the rate at which technology is moving?
I will I'll answer the second question first. The first one, obviously there are the people who are better placed than me to comment on various government initiatives to drive technology adoption. I'm going to talk about what is the role that people here can play, can proactively play, and can play together. About 5 years back, maybe 6 years back, we said one of the missing links to accelerate technology adoption in India is the ability of people to absorb technology. We need people who are digital natives, who are digitally literate, to be able to absorb the technology that is thrown at them. And at that point in time, we had a lot of people doing their own digital literacy program. But we said there is a power in people coming together. So along with NASSCOM, with Intel as a founding partner, we formed the National Digital Literacy Mission. And then we invited everybody to come and partner. We didn't say you need to tweak your model, but we said let's just aggregate the goodness so that we get one single platform to go and talk to the government on things that need to be done. Now, no sooner we did that, we were able to impress upon the government to form the National Digital Literacy Mission, as we know today. And rest is history, right? So many people are now digitally literate. Now, I think the moment is here and now for a similar, collaboration to take place to accelerate innovation. When I spoke of, I'm just reflecting back, there are 3 or 4 buckets of challenges. One is around how do you make more people innovative to be able to contribute? The second is around how do you create support systems, mentor network, etc., for people to do something with the knowledge that they have gained to create something. And the third is to say, how does this become something meaningful, either for the creator or for the community? And the last is, how does it achieve a certain economic scale? Now, mind you, all these buckets have something already happening, either by the government or by somebody who's my co-speaker today. I think the time is ripe for such a coalition, and I'll invite NASSCOM to look at pulling all of us together to see if there can be one national innovation mission which not only looks at skilling, but also brings in that whole startup ecosystem, government preferential buying, policies around them, etc., so that we could have one compelling movement for people to rally around.
Hey, Kishore, thanks for that. I don't know why, that's such a simple solution. I still remember when I was a rookie in this sector, and I remember receiving the mails from Intel saying, this is what we are planning for the digital literacy mission, and all you need to do is get your employees, sign up for half an hour, we'll organize the venue for you, all you need to do is teach basic digital things, and there were partners from across the spectrum of organizations, and nobody even batted an eyelid. And yeah, that's such a simple, I think it's time
you got that email from me.
I do remember that, yeah. So it's time we brought that model back, and this time for innovation, and making sure that this innovation reaches in size and in scale across India to drive this change that we are all seeking. So great. That I think was, that was a light bulb moment for me. Yeah. Okay, we move on. Next question. This is open-ended question, so feel free. This is regarding monitoring of solutions implemented over a period of time. What are the challenges faced in monitoring, how these solutions are landing, and any thoughts of how those challenges could be overcome? So this is an open question.
Yeah, I can probably pick that up. This is something which is very close to us, given the fact that every year we develop, globally around 100 solutions. How to find out whether those are really usable in the hands of our partners, and whether there is something that they need to do on an ongoing basis. So one of the things that we have done is as part of our Force for Good program, we reserve about 30 to 40% of the slots every following year for people for NGOs who want to come back to us with either a part 2 of their solution to round off what they started off their journey with, or if there were some gaps, like Poorvi spoke, we had a few things to do, but if we do that entire e-Tonga and the next version of that is going to become much more impactful and meaningful for them. But I would recommend that, unless that touch point is there, it's going to be very difficult for the partners to be, actually completely comfortable and using it. So there should be something like a 6-monthly touch point. And I mean, honestly, that's something for all of us sitting here at this site to take it up, and also for all the NGOs to maintain a constant dialogue.
Okay. Anybody else wants to take that? Or?
I think you kind of touched all the right points. One of the things that kind of occurred to me sitting in this stage here and listening to Accenture, JP Morgan, Intel, and what we were doing, there's so much of synergy in what we do. And one action point, I don't know whether you already do it in NASSCOM Foundation, is to get us all together more often to kind of, maybe in a smaller groups, to understand best practices and also to feed into each other. Frankly, we always are looking for good projects to fund, and it is not easy. When I first got this job, I thought it is easy to spend money. Now I realize it is not so easy to spend money. So it'd be good for us to do some experience sharing, especially in the monitoring part.
Sure. We'll definitely take you up on that, Harish. Yep. Okay, so I've been told that I have time only for one more question. So some of these are quite generic. One, I'm going to read out and you can take it up later. This is regarding the Kisan Raja share pumps. Shilpa from Vineyard India Compassion Trust. Awesome implementation. They want to know if there has been any thought on automating it all the way where it starts by itself, shuts by itself, and we want to explore possible collaboration. So maybe we can take that offline. There are two questions. One is a little more generic, a little more, and the other is extremely tech heavy. Any suggestions? Tech heavy? Okay. Okay, this is a doozer. This is from Ms. Yasmin Riaz, SOS Children Villages. This is for you, Nishith. Broadly speaking, how can the social sector leverage blockchain technology? And if you can give some examples.
Okay, so thanks for asking this question. Blockchain is very close to my heart as well. So, we have seen one of the implementation of blockchain, which is Bitcoin, but of course, most of the time, whenever I go and speak about blockchain, I always say that, Bitcoin and blockchain is pretty much different, and Bitcoin is just a portion of the first largest implementation of Bitcoin. So in terms of blockchain, blockchain, if you see, it's a immutable distributed ledger. No one can tamper it out as such. So it gives you a lot of things, where definitely, blockchain can be used. For example, supply chain management. Take a case of in terms of social goods, right? Think it out. A farmer is growing a rice, right? Or pulses in the farms, and at the end of the day, there are a lot of middlemen from the farmers that are growing it out from their field to the actual consumer, right? And presumably the farmers might be getting 2 or 3 rupees per kg of rice that are getting generated, but in actual, when the people are getting out, the price may range from 25 rupees to probably 100 odd rupees or more than that. And most of the portion that is actually going in is going out between the transactions that are happening in the middleman. And of course, there's no way to come back and say that, hey, where exactly, if this rice is good or this rice is better. Or maybe I give you another use case, right? The organic foods, it's going pretty much, everybody want to eat an organic food and the juices and all of the stuff. How do you decide that a food is organic or not, right? That's exactly one of the things where the blockchain can really come in and resolve it. There are a lot of various ways, anything where there is a middleman as such, blockchain can certainly be right. And certainly it can make sure that there is a transparency in terms of the transactions that are happening, transparency in terms of the data that is happening. And of course, whenever you are buying something, right? Of course, that's again a place where blockchain can really come up and see and help it out in resolving this. So, verticals are numerous, and of course, I personally feel it out in the next 1-2 years, blockchain is going to transform our lives more than artificial intelligence as such. So I think together these two technologies are going to be very, very disruptive.
Thank you, Nishith. That probably was one of the more simpler explanations of blockchain that I've heard. It's because you hear this term everywhere and everybody talks about Bitcoin, but then you put it in a correct perspective. So thank you for that. With that, we would like to bring this session to a close.